What if I told you that while you were scrolling through your phone this morning, a digital revolution was quietly unfolding across Africa? A revolution that could rewrite the rules of the internet as we know it. For decades, Africa's online traffic has been routed through distant servers in London, Paris, and Silicon Valley, but that era is finally ending. The launch of Africa's continental internet exchange system represents the biggest challenge to Western tech dominance since the creation of the internet itself. And companies like Google, Amazon, and Meta are watching in sheer panic as 1.4 billion people potentially break free from their digital colonialism. To understand why this revolution matters, you need to understand how the internet has worked in Africa until now. When someone in Lagos sends an email to someone in Nairobi, that data doesn't travel directly across the continent. Instead, it takes an absurd 22,000-kilometer detour through submarine cables to London, through European servers, and then back to Kenya.
This isn't just inefficient, it's deliberate digital colonialism. Western tech giants have built an entire ecosystem where African data means African money flowing to Western corporations. This system created three massive problems. First, it's incredibly expensive. Africa pays some of the world's highest internet costs. Second, it's painfully slow. Data traveling thousands of unnecessary kilometers creates massive latency. Third, it's a security risk. African communications are exposed to foreign surveillance. But what if I told you Africa was building its own sovereign internet infrastructure?
The solution lies in what's called Internet Exchange Points, or IXPs. An IXP is like a local town square for internet traffic, a physical infrastructure where internet service providers and content providers interconnect to exchange internet traffic locally. Instead of data traveling overseas for what should be local communication, IXPs allow local networks to efficiently exchange information within a country or region. Think of it like this. If the internet were a transportation system, IXPs would be the local intersections that prevent you from having to drive to another country just to visit your neighbor.
The benefits are immediate and powerful. Latency reductions of up to 80% for local content. Cost savings of up to 90% on bandwidth expenses. Improved reliability during international cable outages. Enhanced security by keeping African data on African soil.
Now here's where the story gets exciting. African nations aren't just building isolated IXPs, they're connecting them into a continental network. In August 2025, Nigeria hosted the 15th African Peering and Interconnection Forum, AFPIF, in Lagos, bringing together over 500 leaders and experts from the global internet industry to examine Africa's internet ecosystem and promote infrastructure development.
This isn't just talk. Real infrastructure is being built right now. Nigeria's IXPN has become one of Africa's largest exchange points. Kenya's IXP already handles over 70% of local traffic locally. South Africa's NAP Africa has grown exponentially since its launch. Rwanda, Ghana, and Tanzania have all launched successful IXPs. The African Union has made digital infrastructure a continental priority, with support from organizations like the Internet Society and the African Internet Exchange Association. Their goal? To create a seamless digital territory where African data stays in Africa, powering local innovation
and creating local wealth. The economic implications of this shift are nothing short of revolutionary. Remember that $5 billion Africa spends annually on routing its internet traffic overseas? That money is about to stay in African economies. But the impact goes far beyond just cost savings. Local content creation is exploding as hosting websites and services locally becomes affordable. E-commerce is flourishing with faster and more reliable connections. Tech startups are emerging across the continent, building solutions for African problems without needing Silicon Valley's permission or infrastructure. Perhaps most importantly, thousands of high-tech jobs are being created, from network engineers to data center technicians to cybersecurity experts. Africa isn't just consuming technology anymore, it's building and controlling its own digital destiny.
This represents the biggest wealth transfer in Africa's digital history, from Western tech giants to African businesses and entrepreneurs. And it's happening right now. Of course, this revolution isn't happening without pushback from powerful interests. Western tech giants and governments have benefited tremendously from the current arrangement, and they're not giving up control easily. We've already seen attempts to undermine African digital sovereignty through economic pressure, political influence, and sometimes outright sabotage. But African nations are pushing back with unprecedented unity. This isn't just about economics, it's about fundamental sovereignty. For the first time, African nations can ensure that their citizens' data isn't being monitored by foreign intelligence agencies or exploited by foreign corporations. They can develop their own digital policies tailored to African needs rather than Western profit models. The continent that was once carved up by colonial powers is now drawing its own digital borders, and this time they're borders that protect rather than exploit. Now, I wish I could tell you this revolution is guaranteed to succeed, but serious challenges remain. Building continent-wide digital infrastructure is incredibly complex, especially in regions with ongoing conflicts like Sudan, where violence has displaced millions and disrupted development. Political instability in countries like Mali and the Democratic Republic of Congo have created obstacles to coordination and investment. Regulatory hurdles and incumbent resistance have slowed progress in some nations, and technical capacity remains a challenge in regions with limited historical investment in digital skills. Perhaps most concerningly, some governments have shown concerning tendencies toward digital repression rather than digital liberation. Countries like Eswatini have upheld colonial-era sedition laws, while others have weaponized cybercrime legislation against journalists and activists. The path forward requires not just technical infrastructure, but commitment to digital rights, ensuring that Africa's internet remains open, free, and empowering for all its citizens. If Africa succeeds in fully realizing this vision, the implications are staggering. We're looking at a future where African students access locally hosted educational content instantly. African patients receive telemedicine from African doctors without latency. African businesses trade on African e-commerce platforms without middlemen. African innovators build solutions for African challenges without going through Silicon Valley. We are witnessing the birth of what could become the world's largest digital common market, 1.4 billion people connected by infrastructure they own and control. This isn't just about catching up with the West, it's about leapfrogging into a different digital future entirely. Other regions are already watching closely. South America has already announced plans to study Africa's model for its own continental network. Southeast Asian nations are having similar discussions. The success of Africa's digital revolution could inspire a global rethinking of how the Internet is organized and controlled. What we're witnessing is nothing less than the greatest reorganization of digital power since the creation of the Internet. The era where a handful of Western corporations and government control global digital communication is coming to an end. Africa is not just reclaiming its digital sovereignty, it's showing the world that there's a better way to organize our digital lives, one based on equality rather than exploitation, on connection rather than control. The next time you send a message or stream a video, remember that how that data travels matters, and in Africa, data is finally coming home.
What do you think? Is this the beginning of a more equitable digital future, or will the challenges prove too great? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you want to help spread the word about Africa's digital revolution, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into how technology is changing our world. This is just the beginning of the story. The next chapter will be written by coders in Nairobi, entrepreneurs in Lagos, and engineers in Kigali. And I can't wait to see what they build.